AOE builds, those things suck. Whoa. Hello Axie faction, welcome back. Let's talk about AOE builds. Aside from the dramatic lack of AOE cards, this strat comes with two major downsides. Firstly, by spreading your damage across the entire team, you're never really targeting a single Axie, which means they're never going to be flooded with revenge cards, and they're always going to have their full options available to them. And secondly, once you've killed one of their Axies, your AOE cards become a lot less viable. Take Chubby for example. Against an entire team, you're dealing 150 damage. That's pretty good stats. But by the time you kill that first Axie, that goes down to 100 damage for 2 energy. And by the time you're at that last Axie, you're only dealing 50 damage for 2 energy. So there are some obvious drawbacks, but that being said, I think I've found one of the most powerful AOE builds in the game, and that's this team right here. We are utilizing these Shady Exchange and Heavenly Prayer runes for an extra advantage. I'll explain how it works. Real quick, I am not an expert or a financial advisor. I'm just a gamer who loves Axie. Let's get back to it. So on the backline, we've got this mech with Shady Exchange. It gives you an extra energy every other turn, but provides you with 3 dazed and 2 voids into your deck, which can be pretty detrimental. But that is exactly why we're playing this Dawn on the front lane. We have Heavenly Prayer, which removes 2 curse cards at the beginning of your turn. In addition, you also heal your teammates 10 health and give them a damage boost per curse card removed this way. Now I know on the text it says only 1 curse card, but if you look at the recent balance sheet, you'll notice that it is actually 2 curse cards. They just haven't updated the text yet. Now the biggest downside to Shady Exchange is the risk of drawing into both of your voids on turn 1. This can be so crippling that sometimes it's not even worth finishing the match. But if we fill up our deck with enough innate cards, we can guarantee a strong first turn. So let's get into the card set. Now I'll tell you right off the bat, a lot of these cards aren't optimized. There aren't a lot of Axies that are bred for this purpose. So the most important cards on this Axie are Grandma's Fan and Lucas. And because this Dawn is in front, I've put Energy Drink M on Grandma's Fan. I know this Axie is going to die before the deck cycles anyway, so I might as well get rid of it because I know I'm going to be playing it turn 1. And like I said earlier, we need those innate cards for a strong first turn, so we have Secret Egg on Lucas. And next up, we have this AOE trifecta, one-of-a-kind beast, rocking Grandma's Fan, Tri-Feather, and Chubby. For the rune, I've chosen to go with Pangolin Scale for a little bit more sustainability, and when we go into the charms, you'll notice I put Pre-Order Tag on Chubby. Now, usually you'd want to go with Hidden Razor here because that bleed damage across the entire team is very strong. But in this particular build, we want to make sure we're getting that early game AOE damage, so we're going with Innate instead. And other than that, we're just going for a little bit more vitality and extra damage on Grandma's Fan. You'll see why. Now, on the mech, you'll notice there are no AOE cards, and that's because by the time you get down to that 1v1, you don't want any of those AOE cards to show up. They're only going to be a detriment. You want to get as much damage output as possible. That being said, the most important cards on this Axie are Cottontail and Robin. When Robin is on the field, it provides an additional 16 damage per hit, which is huge in terms of AOE. And Cottontail is absolutely necessary to pull off our first turn combo. And again, we've got Pre-Order Tag on there as well. As for the rest of the cards, I just went for cards that have as much damage output as possible. It doesn't look like too much here, but Furball is actually amazing when combined with Robin. You'll see it in action. Alright, so first match here is against Sean from Quest. Definitely a formidable opponent. Now we start off, we're going to play with Lucas first off to find Robin and play it as early as possible so that we get that extra damage buff. Now we're playing Cottontail for the energy and Grandma's Fan. So normally this would only do 15 damage, but we're getting a huge damage buff from Robin there and applying vulnerable to the whole team. Then we go in with our second Grandma's Fan with the power charm on it for some huge damage. That's way more than it should be. And now that we've played Grandma's Fan twice, the time on vulnerable actually stacks. So now they'll have vulnerable for 8 turns. Now Sean's got an interesting strategy here. He searches out for Pocky to apply taunt to my backliner. Then he's gonna use Puppy to get that Pocky back from the discard and play it again so that that taunt is then stacked for 4 turns, and I'll continue to be taunted into his next round. He then goes in with Cottontail and Rice, but unfortunately I play AOE. He can't heal back up to full health, so he doesn't get that extra energy. Not that it would matter. Now you'll notice here that my Robin Bird actually heals back up to full health, and that's because of the effect of Heavenly Prayer. Anytime I remove a curse card, it heals all of my units 10 health, which keeps that bird alive way longer than it normally would. Here, I'm just going in with as much damage as possible. I could finish him off with Axie Kiss, but I decided to go to the back lane instead. And that's because if I used Axie Kiss on the front lane, I'd be wasting over 80 damage on an Axie that's about to die anyway. I know I haven't seen my Tri-Feather yet, so I'm hoping if I draw into it next turn, then I can take out that front Axie as well as damaging both his back Axies, so that seems like a much stronger play to me. He manages to take out my backliner, but my front 2 Axies are still standing strong. And here, we actually draw into the Tri-Feather, so I'm about to get huge damage from this. 13 damage goes to the backline because of Death Mark, and now I'm getting over 150 stats from a single energy. That's amazing. Now I'm going in with as much damage as I have, and I'm going to go ahead and play Pink Cheek to get rid of that card and thin my deck out a little bit. I know the dawn isn't long for this world. It's definitely not over for Sean yet, though. He has Fury Mode coming in about 2 more turns, and he has a lot of damage to put out here. He's going to go in with a Double Nut and an Imp and get the kill on that Dawn. I'm left with 1 Axie and a whole bunch of revenge cards in my deck. It's all going to depend on what I draw into here. If I don't kill him this turn, I lose. I know he's going into Fury next turn, and he has Topaz, so this is going to be big. I go in with Tri-Feather, which deals a significant 100 damage across the board, and I have just enough energy to play all 3 revenge cards, taking out the front Axie and taking out the back Axie as well, and we have our first W. So, I mean, obviously you can see the potential here, right? My first turn may be a little bit slow, but I'm setting up for a huge late game. I'm giving them all vulnerable for 8 turns by playing both my Grandma's Fan, and my Robin survives till round 8 because it's constantly getting healed from that Heavenly Prayer. And with the combination of Robin and vulnerable, these seemingly innocuous AOE cards become very threatening. Now, before we go into the next match, I want to apologize for showing a replay of a very similar build, but it works totally different when you go second. And I swear to God, I played around 30 matches and only went second like 5 times. Look, I'll show you. Alright, let's go to the next match. Alright, so like I said, we're going second this time. We're going up against KXO. Not very familiar with this opponent, but he starts off with Chubby, which is actually great for me. AoE is terrible for my Robin, and now that I know it's already out of the way, I can safely play my Robin and know that it's going to be safe. So of course, I start off with my Lucas, search out for Robin, play Robin to get that early damage buff. Now we're going to go in with both Grandma's Fan, right? So the first one is going to apply vulnerable, and then the second one is going to stack that vulnerable and get the extra damage buff from the first vulnerable. So here we're going in with 21 damage is what it's supposed to apply, where we get the 16 damage buff, and we're doing around 46 damage altogether with the vulnerable and the damage buff. Now Chubby comes in for 61 damage, 75 damage, and 75 damage again. So not only do they have vulnerable for 8 turns, I've got my Robin set up, but if you did the calculations, I just dealt 445 damage across their entire team. That's insane. Now he goes in with Oranda and Inkling, I believe, gets a little bit of damage on that Dawn, plays clear just to banish it, get it out of the way, and it's back to my turn. Now I get a pretty decent hand here. I'm going to start off with Tri-Feather, but beforehand I'm going to play Tiny Fan so I get a little bit of extra damage boost per hit. So we're going in with Tri-Feather for 48, 56, and another 56. Over 150 damage for a single energy is so strong. Trump and let's see, Dual Blade is going to do the most damage, so that's where I go, and that finishes off my second turn. Now KXO is looking pretty beat up, but remember, it all comes down to what he draws into once he gets that Fury mode. He starts off with Zen, goes into Meditation, is able to finish off my frontliner, and passes the turn back to me. Let's see what I draw into here. It's not looking too great right now, but we do have Furball, so now you can start to see sort of the amazing benefits that you get from both Vulnerable and Robin's 62 damage per hit for a total of 124 for a single energy. Goda comes in, gives him Avoid, dealing 82 damage as well. We finished it off with our 2 Revenge cards. Now I played it on Robin. This was definitely a misplay. I know his deck is about to cycle, so there's a risk of him drawing into Chubby again, and I thought maybe I could keep the Robin alive one more turn if I played the shield over there. Unfortunately, it was definitely a lost cause. Here he's going to play Chubby, and it's going to go right through that shield. It would have been much better off if I had played that shield on the back line instead. So bye-bye, Robin. You were well loved. Now he also has Cottontail and is able to play a little bit more damage with that Revenge card, but now he's forced to pass. He has no more options left. Now let's see what we draw into here, and we get a God Hand. So we're going to start off with Furball for huge damage, taking out that frontline Axie. We still have 2 energy left, and he still has Vulnerable. So we're going to go in with Axie Kiss and Imp to finish off the match. Wow. Now, this comp still struggles against things like Backline Wall Gecko, but then again, what doesn't? And I think we might need another balance patch before AoE is truly viable, but this build was so much fun playing and crafting that I just had to show you. So make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Let me know what strategy you want me to dive into next, and until next time, I'll see you in the arena.